Welcome back to the Lizardman campaign for Total War Warhammer 2. Last time we started our second ritual, Chaos showed up and blew up one of our settlements, but then we took down two of their armies by fighting the same battle over and over again in a choke point, and their second invasion coming from a different direction just got wiped out. One of their armies managed to make it to one of our settlements and lost in their attempts to get inside, but now we have to deal with the final problem the ritual brought up, and that is a Dark Elf army attacking one of the sites. We've got walls to help us defend, and I'm going to try and use our towers to damage the enemy as much as possible by fighting it outside of the walls, as someone recommended in a previous part in the comments. The enemy are just charging right at us, of course, including running up their cavalry, very ambitious. Perhaps they think they're going to take the gates right away. I'm actually going to open those gates and rush out myself. As I said, we're going to form up in front of the walls. Well, not really form up, just be in front of the walls, so that the enemy get distracted fighting with us beneath our towers. And you can see the towers are just somehow shooting something. They sort of have arrows shooting out of their little electrical things. Maybe they're summoning them from other dimensions or something. So all we need to do is make the enemy be in front of the walls for a bit, and it should mean they gradually take casualties to this fire. We're probably going to take casualties to it as well, since it's not all that accurate. Hopefully it will tip things in our favour overall. Now we need to stop these siege towers. I wanted to stop them by just kind of walking into them, but it doesn't work in these games. Previously there would be a unit pushing the tower that you could attack, and that would stop the tower from moving. Here it doesn't seem like you can do that, but luckily towers are actually really weak, so they just get destroyed by the arrow fire from the walls quite easily. That means we were able to stop all of their siege towers from doing anything. They can still put ladders up, as you can see, and a few units managed to sneak by us to get those ladders going. Here I'm quickly attacking the unit just as they start climbing to distract them so they won't climb the whole unit up and fight with our skinks. This doesn't really help with our tower plan because they're probably out of range of the towers right up against the wall there, but at least we'll save some skink lives, maybe at least. Once all the melees get started, all we need to do is keep them going, in theory, so that our arrow towers can diminish the enemy's numbers. But they're killing quite a lot of us. You can see they just got their Dark Elf buff for killing a sufficient amount of our army. That's going to make them stronger. So yeah, these melees we're taking aren't necessarily in our advantage. We're just doing it to keep the enemy still and hoping the towers will make it worth our while. Here the enemy commander just tanking a whole unit of kroq-gars and gradually killing them. They're pretty good, obviously, but the rest of their army is having less luck. We do have quite a lot of stuff in our garrison overall, and Dark Elf regular infantry isn't actually very good, so we are able to hack through a lot of them. The main problem we were having was the enemy's crossbow troops at the back, who were raining arrows into our blobs of troops, so I'm going to send out the stegodon to just chase them off and try and inflict some kills. Once we kill all the melee forces, these archers will be all that's left, and we'll have to chase them around for a while. Luckily, they don't seem to be able to do the old fire backwards trick. That means it's safe to just chase them without taking any further losses, and there goes pretty much everything else. I don't really know to what extent the towers helped in this battle. We seem to kind of win the melees on their own, but it is hard to tell. A few enemies did make it up onto the walls, as we can see, but our skinks inside the town are busy hunting them down to make sure they don't have those units left after the battle. Then it was just a case of taking out those crossbowmen, as I said, and the stegodon is going to do pretty much all the work there. Everyone else is too far away to catch up. Luckily a stegodon's all you need. The enemy didn't seem to be able to do anything against it, couldn't get out of the way and shoot it or anything like that, so they just got hacked to pieces. All very nice. Eventually this battle is going to come to an end. It's a close victory. All we needed, we just wanted them to not raise the settlement or take it so that we could keep the ritual going. We've done that, and the losses are pretty much irrelevant. These guys won't need to do much more after this, and the enemy's losses were really, really high actually. We decimated their army. They can't do anything more to us. That's very good, and I'm actually going to take the replenishment from the battle results so that my little army of a couple of units that I do have can have enough troops to go out and finish off the Dark Elves. The advantage there is it means I don't have to bring the main force with kroq-gar up there to fight them, so they can more quickly go over to instead fight with Chaos. That turned out to be fine because the Dark Elves moved back into reinforcement range of the settlement, so our garrison once again came out. So really I probably could have taken the money from the aftermath of that battle. Easy peasy, that's the Dark Elf intervention dealt with, and we can now go back to building our defences. Basically not building the defences in advance turned out not to be a huge problem. So now I needed to take down the Chaos armies at Golden Tower. They're still hanging around, and I actually couldn't get the fight I wanted going where kroq-gar reinforced, but I ended up just killing them all with the garrison in the town somehow. So again, kroq-gar just isn't required. He didn't even need to be here for all this ritual stuff. Probably could have gone and done something else to progress the campaign. But now we're in a position to finish off those 2 Chaos armies once we can move through in the next turn. Then we'll have to go back and rebuild the stuff we lost, and the ritual will be complete. The Chaos armies were kind to kroq-gar. They came and besieged the settlement yet again. I think they're still trying to get to the ritual sites, even with no men left. I guess they're not programmed to do anything else. So that time kroq-gar could wipe them out. And then he had to give away all of his troops when he went over to Kyoto in order to recolonize it after the raising the Chaos gave it last time. That's annoying, but with our sky-high replenishment, we'll actually be fine again in a couple of turns to go and do something else. The question is, what are we going to do now? The first thing I was thinking about is the orange lizards. They're sitting there, they're in a province that we have a region in, and it would be just generally nice if we had that territory, and one way to get it would be to get them to just surrender it to us through a confederation. They don't want to right now, which is very disappointing. It says something that you need to be more powerful than them by some unknown margin to get people to agree to it. I thought they might agree to it if I just paid them, but not yet. I'm going to be nice though and leave them to it for a while. I'm just going to get bigger and then come back to them with the same deal, rather than wiping them out, even though we probably could just wipe them out. Instead, we're going to go back to the vampires. We need to get rid of their corruption from our lands, so might as well just get started on that while we wait for the ritual to complete. First step was pretty easy because they don't have anything on their border, and for whatever reason we'll see all the vampire settlements aren't upgraded at all. They've just got loads of level 1 settlements with nothing in them around the place, so we can just kind of walk in and occupy them without much of a battle. There's the first one, easy peasy. We'll start building it up, and we are going to face that vampiric corruption everywhere, so that's going to make life a little bit annoying around here. Eventually it will go away, and if we can complete the province, that will make life a lot easier in that regard. It'll go away fast, and we can use commandments to make it even faster. A big issue that arose just after we moved out was that this army from the Abominations, one of the rogue factions that controls the plains of Tuskers over there to the northwest, they've started coming down with a full stack into our territory, and they've got some pretty good units from what we can see of it so far. Plus, the vampires have 2 armies on their front line who might come to counterattack. That means I don't want to move kroq-gar backwards right now. It would be better to have him up there fighting the vampires. I do have a backup army which was following kroq-gar and can make it back to Kyoto right now, and I decided to do that because I saw that the Abominations can reach that settlement at the moment, and because it's only just been rebuilt after raising, it doesn't have defences or anything, so it would be really easy for them to come and probably just raise it again. By the looks of their army build, they're probably into raising. So we're going to move back, we're going to just sit around here and provide at least some form of defence against a possible attack. I'm going to use this 3rd army as well, start moving it over. I was building them up with a few unique units over in our home territory to eventually bring to kroq-gar, but they'll have a mission before that by the looks of things. Now kroq-gar can actually move out. I realised that the first of the vampire armies we could see was really weak, and you can see from that balance bar that this was a correct assessment. We just went and overran them. They had tons of zombies which fill out a unit slot but don't really provide any power to the army, which makes the army effectively a lot smaller than it looks, so you can just destroy them. I'm going to eat some of the delicious undead flesh to get some of our lizards back somehow. And now I actually probably could have gone on to attack their settlement, but I wanted to go backwards to play it safe. The ideal solution would actually have been to encamp, but I didn't have the movement range to do it right now. Encamping removes the attrition, but the other way to get rid of attrition is to just rush back into one of your own settlements. I can use the march stance to quickly do that now. There we go, we'll be back at full strength next time, and we've just weakened the vampire's ability to counterattack us, and we'll keep defending from here. So what the Abominations did was advance a bit towards us and start raiding, so that's pretty annoying. We might even have to go and attack them. Good news though, that ritual is done, and we're actually pretty close to doing the 3rd ritual as well, although so are the other factions. Not that it actually matters in which order you do the rituals or which order the factions do the rituals, as I mentioned in a previous part. We just have to complete it eventually if we want to get that victory condition. Now what I'm going to do here is combine our second and third armies together into one stack. That will allow me to disband our third general, which just increases your income overall, because having fewer armies gets rid of a little debuff to your income you get from having multiple lords active at once. So that's very nice. We've now got a full stack ready to face those abominations, although it can't move right now because all those shenanigans have used up all the points. As for kroq-gar, I was considering what to do next. I want to go to that place in the east because that's the capital of the province and it's more defensible, but the circumstances right now make it easier to go for this place in the north. We can actually reach it right now, and even though there was a full stack inside, I didn't even look at the full stack. I just presumed it was nothing and we'd just be able to go and completely annihilate them. That appeared to be the case. It's not quite as nothing as the last army we faced, but still pretty nothing. Tons of trash infantry, so we just eat them, no problem at all, and move in. So now we've taken 2 places from the vampires, and this second place, like the first one, is a really bad settlement, so we can't do much with it, but at least we can sit in it and not take vampiric corruption, or the attrition from the corruption, so that is good. Next I got a peace treaty with the something or other empire, one of these vampire factions up in the northwest that I had no idea I was at war with. I might have been called in via an ally or something and forgotten about it, and we just never even saw each other throughout the war. So we got peace with them, that's nice. We'll probably go back to war with them at some point. First, Khazotl does get attacked by the abominations. Time to see if our backup army can stop these monstrous units they're bringing. They've got lots of special units here, but we also have lots of spearmen, so that's something. We'll get our bonus against large and try to use it against all of these monstrous things that are going to be crashing through our lines very shortly. We'll just want to wait around as the battle starts, since most of our strength is in the reinforcement army. That means our poor garrison units will be left facing the entire abomination horde, and the struggle to start with will be their artillery. Calling it artillery is a bit of a misnomer really. They have giant guys throwing giant rocks at us from very far away, very accurately, and that spells bad news for these Saurus spears. I'm going to try and scatter around the place and get our units into hidden positions, or at the very least be within tree cover, because trees block these shots. So there they are, these Cygors, giant Cyclops beast things, hitting us for quite a lot of damage right now. So that's a bad start to the fight. Luckily we do get into tree cover, so we can start hiding from them in there, while everyone else just gradually comes onto the field and we'll get ready to fight. We need to do it quickly. The enemy are almost upon us. This was a very small map, so we didn't have much time to get ready to fight this huge selection of different abominations. I guess the name was accurate. All kinds of monstrous units from across the game's factions who have teamed up in the name of killing stuff, I presume. And here we go, we're going to get started. So I'll be trying to use my spearmen for most of the fight, since most of the enemy units are weak against spearmen. Still taking that rock fire, as you can see, and that's just going to go on throughout the battle. Not too much we can do until we can get around the enemy to engage those Cygors in melee. In the meantime, we'll take on the monsters with the spears, as I said, but the problem here is that you get a bonus attacking monsters. You have no bonus to your defense against them, so while we'll kill them a bit faster than usual, they'll still wreck us just like any other unit, and monsters are somewhat powerful when it comes to melee combat. So that's going to be a problem for pretty much all the units you can see here engaged across the front line, especially where it's lower quality units like skinks facing the enemy. And right in the centre, it's going wrong fast. They're just annihilating our spearmen. There's too much stuff out there. We're doing a lot of damage back to them, but still going to have a little bit of a hole in our line as a result of the enemy's sheer power. Meanwhile, there's a much smaller battle going on the other side of the fight, where my commander from the garrison is hiding in the trees from the enemy's Cygors, but he's been found by the spawn, so it's going to be a one-on-one fight there. That should go okay. Now I've deployed my Stegodon to deal with all of the enemy's regular infantry. They didn't have that much of this, but they've got some Beastmen axe troops who will just rampage through there. Those guys will do really badly against everything on our side, so I'm not worried about them at all. Just distracting them and freeing up more units to deal with the bigger threats like the Chaos Spawn, and preferably the Cygors if we can. To take down those guys, I needed to use my Cold One cavalry. Right now they're getting stuck into a melee here. I'll have to get them out in a second, and we'll just run across the battlefield, taking that artillery fire as we go in an attempt to get those guys into a melee. Cold One units, as cavalry units go, are actually pretty slow, so we are going to take a bit of a pounding as we go in. Luckily there, that guy was trying to throw his rock towards one of my units that's protected by trees, so it didn't do anything. And we are going to get that closure to melee. Still not going to be a complete one-sided fight, because it is still a giant thing that can hit us with the rocks at point blank range if it wants, but at least it's not firing and it will reduce their general damage output. Meanwhile, the main fight's starting to go our way. We're clearing up some of the smaller beasts the enemy have brought, and the enemy are starting to run out of monsters because we are killing them just about as fast as they're killing us, and we have a lot of stuff. It will eventually go in our favour in a long-term grind. That's the plan anyway. And what I actually found was the Cygors all routed once I got them into melee, and this seemed to have a big effect on the rest of their army because it all routed as well, and the balance bar went from roughly even to completely in our favour right away, so that was good. Although it's not a complete rout because the spawn units actually can't rout, so we still have to fight them, but we now have everything against them, so that's pretty much going to be fine. We'll also want to chase down as much stuff as we can and make sure these abominations aren't going to get up to any more antics after this defeat. We've got one of these Cygors, but two of them are going to escape. Because the map was quite small, they didn't have to walk very far to get off the map, and our units were doing almost no damage to them, chasing them for whatever reason. Here's the eventual result. It claims to be a close victory. I'd say it's better than that. On our side, we didn't lose any full units, and really things were looking pretty good, and I'm not quite sure how we got away with that so well. The enemy lost absolutely tons of stuff, I guess because they had a lot of units that couldn't rout. They were destroyed down to the last man or beast, and so they lost a lot of stuff overall as a result of losing the battle. They didn't lose everything though, and an army is going to escape there. I wanted to pursue after them and take them down, but there's a little bit of a problem. One of the vampire agents, this ghost down here, has applied a minus 50-something% movement range debuff to my army, but for whatever reason he's lost 80% of his movement range, so I don't know if the numbers were just wrong there. But we basically can't chase after them at all. All I could do was go and sit in the settlement, so we can do that to get the army back to full strength, but they are going to get away with the rest of their beasts. Meanwhile, kroq-gar just stepping out of his little base to annihilate a gigantic army of skeletons that was walking up to challenge him. That's no problem, although we annoyingly lost a couple of units from the garrison, which were getting involved in the fight just for fun, I guess, and that's annoying but not going to have any big consequence. So with them killed, I wanted to go after that second vampire army, their backup that was chasing behind them. This backup army had a few troops, a few units that were better, but not enough of them. There they go. So that's two more vampire armies destroyed. I am unfortunately going to have to sit in attrition now because I can't get back to my settlement, but hopefully it's worth it. Once we get back in there next time, we'll easily replenish any losses we take here, and the vampires just getting weaker and weaker as we wipe out everything they have. So I ended up chasing after those abominations, and I eventually found they've gone back to their settlement and they're now replenishing their forces, and they even have a pretty good garrison in the settlement, so attacking them might actually be a tiny bit of a problem. With kroq-gar, I wanted to now head southeast to try and take the provincial capital, this city down here, which would really help us just get rid of that corruption and give us more building slots to work with. It is defended by a small vampire army with lots of agents in it standing outside, so we'll see what they do. In the next turn, I'm going to head right on to besiege the abominations because they were recruiting new units, so we need to get a siege going to cancel that recruitment, otherwise they'd probably end up going right back to full strength in a couple of turns. But with their garrison thrown into what they had left over from last time, it's actually looking pretty good for them, a roughly even fight, plus they have walls to defend. So what I'm going to do here is just leave them under siege so they can't recruit anything, and I might eventually try and get other forces over there to help out with that siege. They might even sally. We'll just see what they do. Now that vampire army that was near that place I was going for started moving back the other way, so we've kind of walked past each other here. And it looks like they might be going back up north to take that terrible settlement. So I was like, fine, I'll just ignore them, because if I went after them I'd probably end up wasting more turns taking attrition. Let's just go right on and get the siege started. They've got a big garrison inside. I think they have the garrison enhancing building here, plus they have walls, so it's not a walkover at last this time. We're going to start a siege and get some siege equipment together. To stop that little vampire army that we ignored though, I realised I did have one option. I could move this tiny force I'd recruited just off to the southwest to move up and garrison our very front line. It's a Slan Mage Priest, one of our special lords, which you can get through a right, and a couple of troops, nothing particularly special, so they'll just add themselves to the garrison there, so it's a tiny bit more defensible, and that turned out to be a pretty good move because it gets attacked immediately, and the balance bar's kind of even thanks to the presence of our additional troops. So the enemy have lots of decent units here, crypt ghouls, and lots of heroes. They've got mages and melee heroes, to which we don't really have an answer right now, but maybe we can just hold out somehow. We'll see what I can do with this one next time.